Forest mysteries.
The note Sam left on the kitchen table was 2 lines long. He didn't explain the fight. He didn't say sorry. He just wrote that he was tired of getting blamed for things he didn't start and that they would be better off without him. He took three $20 bills from the jar on top of the fridge, pushed them deep into his jeans pocket, and walked out the back door at 11 at night. The air outside was cold enough to make his nostrils sting. He crossed the empty street with his hands shoved into his armpits, head down, and slipped past the last streetlight. The ring road hummed with distant trucks. He knew the way to the dump by heart. Every kid in town did. It was the place you went when you wanted to disappear for a while. The ground under his sneakers changed from cracked pavement to gravel, then to packed dirt. The smell hit him first, wet ash, rotting cardboard, and something sweet and chemical that clung to the back of his throat. Old appliances lay on their sides like dead animals. A mountain of shredded plastic bags rustled in the wind. Sam found a half-crushed shipping container near the back fence. The metal floor was cold, but at least the wind didn't cut through. He pulled his knees to his chest and sat in the dark, listening to his own breath. This was it. No school, no house, no mother looking at him with that tight-lipped disappointment. Just him and the garbage. He thought about his father. The man had left 6 years ago, but his voice still lived somewhere in Sam's head. You run away from everything. Sam clenched his fist so hard his nails bit into his palms. Not this time, he whispered. The words sounded small and stupid in the empty container. A patrol car's headlights swept across the dump, painting the rusted walls white for 2 seconds. Sam flattened himself against the floor, his heart punched against his ribs. The lights moved on. The car didn't stop. He let out a shaky breath and closed his eyes. That was when he heard it. A low, wet moan rising from somewhere deeper in the dump. Not a cat, not a dog, something heavier. The sound vibrated in the air, full of pain, and it didn't stop. Sam crawled out of the container. The moon was a thin white hook above the tree line. He followed the sound over a ridge of broken furniture and split tires. His fingers were numb, but he kept moving, stepping carefully to avoid snapping any dry branches. The moaning grew louder, thick with effort, like the animal was trying to drag itself somewhere and failing. He found it near a mound of black garbage bags. A wolf, a massive gray wolf, its hind leg matted with dark blood that glistened red in the faint moonlight. The animal's chest rose and fell in short, ragged bursts. One yellow eye cracked open and fixed on Sam with a stare that was not quite wild and not quite tame. Sam's first instinct was to back away. A wolf was not a stray dog. It could kill him if it wanted to, even wounded, but the animal didn't growl. It just watched him, breathing hard, as if it had been waiting for someone to come. He knelt slowly. The wolf's fur smelled of pine and rotten meat. Around its neck was a faded leather collar, crusted with dirt. Sam's hand trembled as he reached for it. The wolf made a low sound, not a warning, more like exhaustion. Sam's fingers found a small metal tag. The name Prince was scratched into the brass in jagged letters. Below it, a phone number, smeared to nothing by weather and time. Sam turned the tag over. Nothing else, just a name and a number that would never work. He sat back on his heels. The wolf Prince closed its eye again and let out a shuddering breath. The patrol car was probably circling back. The temperature was still dropping. Sam's stomach was empty, his mother's stolen money a cold weight in his pocket. But he didn't move. He looked at the wolf's ruined leg and thought about the school hallway. The boy with the phone camera, the shove, the fist, the principal's voice, violent by nature. Maybe they were right. Or maybe they just didn't understand that sometimes you had to fight, even when the fight cost you everything. The wind shifted, carrying the distant wail of a train horn. Sam wrapped his fingers around the wolf's collar and pulled gently, testing the weight. Prince whimpered but didn't resist. The animal was too weak to fight. Somewhere on the other side of the dump, an engine rumbled to life and faded into the night. Sam stayed where he was, one hand resting on the wolf's side, feeling the shallow rise and fall of its ribs. He had no plan, no food, no warm place to go. but he had found something that was just as lost as he was, and leaving it behind felt impossible. Sam had never carried anything heavier than a bag of groceries. The wolf weighed at least 120 pounds. Its body was limp, unconscious again, but the dead weight was almost too much. He hooked his arms under the animal's chest and dragged it backwards over the trash, grunting with every step. The old shed was half a mile away, a relic from when the dump had been a working farm. Sam had found it 2 summers ago while exploring. It leaned to one side, the roof half caved in, but the walls still stood. That was enough. He moved slowly, stopping every few minutes to catch his breath and check the trail. The wolf's blood left a dark smear on the ground. Sam pulled a torn tarp from a pile and wrapped it around the animal's leg, but the bleeding hadn't stopped completely. He had to get inside before anyone saw. The shed smelled of old manure and diesel. Rusted tools hung on the walls, and a pile of hay bales sat rotting in the corner. Sam lowered Prince onto the driest patch of floor and collapsed beside him. His arms shook. His hands were slick with blood and sweat. For a long minute, he just lay there, staring at the cobwebbed ceiling and listening to the wolf's labored breathing. He thought about leaving. The smart thing would be to walk away now, before someone found him, before the wolf died and the smell brought more animals. He could still go home, face his mother, take whatever punishment came. That was the smart thing. But he looked at Prince's closed eyes and felt something twist in his chest. The wolf had a collar. Someone had named him. That meant he wasn't just a wild animal, he was a thing that had been wanted once. Thrown away, maybe, or lost, or stolen, but wanted. The same way Sam had been wanted before everything went wrong. If I let him die, Sam whispered, then they were right. I don't finish anything. He pushed himself upright and started working. He tore strips from an old shirt found in the corner and wrapped the wolf's leg as tight as he could. The wound was ugly, a jagged tear, maybe from a trap, maybe from a bullet. He didn't know how to fix it, but he knew he had to try. Outside, the wind picked up. The shed's loose boards rattled. Then, cutting through the noise, came a new sound, footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, crunching over gravel. Sam froze. He pressed himself against the wall and peered through a crack in the boards. A man was walking through the dump, a rifle cradled in his arms. He wore a thick canvas jacket and a cap pulled low over his face. A spotlight beam swept the ground in front of him. The man stopped about 30 yards from the shed. He knelt and touched the ground. Sam's stomach dropped. The blood trail. Prince, the man called, his voice rough and almost amused. I know you're out here, you old devil. The wolf's ear twitched. A low growl rumbled in its throat, barely audible, but enough to make Sam's blood run cold. He clamped his hand over the animal's muzzle and pressed his forehead against its neck. SHH, he breathed. SHH, SHH. The footsteps came closer. Sam could see the man's boots now, thick and scuffed, stopping right outside the shed door. The beam of the spotlight plate across the wooden slats, casting long stripes of light onto Sam's face. He didn't breathe. His heart pounded so hard he was sure the man could hear it. Seconds stretched. The wolf's body tensed under him, but the animal didn't fight. It stayed silent as if it understood. Finally, the man grunted. Fine, you'll turn up. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of paper. Sam heard the rip of tape, then the slap of paper against wood. The man's footsteps retreated, growing fainter until they were swallowed by the wind. Sam waited a full minute before he moved. Then he crawled to the door and pushed it open a crack. Taped to the outside was a flyer. Handwritten in thick black marker. Wanted dangerous animal gray wolf prince, do not approach, report sightings. Below it was a phone number. A different one, fresh and clear. Sam stared at the flyer for a long time. The man with the rifle knew Prince by name. He wasn't just hunting a wolf. He was hunting this wolf, and he would be back. Sam closed the door and sat with his back against it. Prince's breathing had evened out a little. The bleeding seemed slower, but the shed didn't feel safe anymore. Nowhere did. He pulled the 3 crumpled $20 bills from his pocket and smoothed them on his knee. $60. Not enough for a vet, not enough for anything, but maybe enough for bandages, for antiseptic, for food. He would have to steal the rest. The thought made his stomach turn, but he shoved it down. The wolf's yellow eye opened again and found him in the dark. There was no threat in it now, just a quiet, exhausted watching. Sam reached out and rested his hand on the animal's shoulder. The fur was rough and warm. "Don't worry," he said, though he wasn't sure who he was talking to. "I'm not going anywhere." Outside the shed, the wind kept blowing, and the flyer flapped against the wood like a warning. The wolf was dying. Sam could see it in the way the wound had turned hot and swollen, in the yellowish discharge that seeped through the bandage every few hours. He had cleaned it with water from the creek and torn strips from his own undershirt, but it wasn't enough. By the second night, Prince had stopped eating the scraps of bread Sam left beside him. His breathing was shallow and his eyes stayed closed even when Sam touched his face. Sam knew what he had to do. The thought made his stomach feel like a clenched fist. There was only one vet clinic in town, a low brick building on the corner of Maple and 3rd, and he had taken his old dog there 3 years ago to be put down. He remembered the layout: a waiting room, a hallway, exam rooms on the left, and in the back, behind a door marked staff only, the supply room. The lock on the drug cabinet would be a problem, but he would figure it out. He waited until 2 in the morning. The town was dead quiet, no cars, no voices. He walked 3 miles along the shoulder of the road, with his hood pulled low and his hands shoved deep into his pockets. The clinic sign glowed pale blue against the dark. Sam circled to the back alley where the dumpsters stood and found the small window above the sink. It was closed but not locked. He pushed it open with a soft squeak and pulled himself inside, landing on the linoleum floor of the treatment room. The air smelled of antiseptic and wet fur. The scent hit him so hard, almost gagged. It was the smell of sick animals, of medicine and cleaning fluid, and the faint, sweet undertone of blood. He stood still for a long minute, listening. The building hummed with the sound of a refrigerator. Somewhere a clock ticked. He moved into the hallway. His sneakers squeaked on the floor, loud enough to make his teeth ache. He took them off and carried them, walking in his socks. The supply room door was unlocked. Inside, metal shelves reached to the ceiling, stacked with bottles, boxes, sealed packages. The drug cabinet stood in the corner, a tall gray box with a combination lock. Sam's hands were sweating. He had never broken into anything before. He had never stolen anything except the $60 from his mother's jar, and that already made him feel like dirt. Now he was about to become a real thief, the kind of person who breaks into clinics and steals medicine. The kind of person the principal always said he would become. He caught his reflection in the polished steel of a surgical table. The boy staring back at him was thin and hollow-eyed, with dirt smeared across his cheek and hair that hadn't seen a comb in days. He looked like a stranger. A criminal. That's what he was now. He pocketed a small foil packet of dog treats from an open box, and the gesture felt so pathetic he wanted to laugh. Stealing medicine for a wolf and treats for a dog. He didn't know what he was anymore. The lock on the drug cabinet was old. Sam found a screwdriver in a drawer and wedged it into the gap between the door and the frame. He pushed hard. The metal creaked, then gave way with a snap that echoed through the room. He froze, holding his breath. No footsteps. He pulled out a bottle of amoxicillin tablets and a packet of surgical staples, still sealed in plastic. He stuffed them into his jacket. Then he heard it. A police siren, far away but getting closer. The sound drilled through his bones. He scrambled back to the treatment room, shoes still in his hand. As he climbed onto the sink to reach the window, a radio crackled somewhere in the building. A man's voice, sleepy and annoyed, just doing rounds. All quiet. The janitor. Sam's heart slammed against his ribs. He pushed the window open and swung one leg over the sill. A vial slipped from his jacket and fell to the floor with a tiny clink. It rolled across the linoleum and stopped right at the janitor's shoe. Sam didn't move. The janitor bent down, picked up the vial, and squinted at it in the dim light. He grunted, set it on a counter, and walked back the way he came, still talking into his radio. The words blurred into noise. Sam dropped to the ground outside and ran. He didn't stop until the clinic lights were a pinprick in the distance. Back in the shed, his hands shook so badly he almost couldn't break the amoxicillin tablet. He crushed it into a paste with a little water and forced it down the wolf's throat. Prince swallowed weakly. Sam then cleaned the wound and used the surgical staples to close the torn edges of skin. The wolf whimpered once, then fell still. Sam sat back on his heels, breathing hard. The first gray light of dawn was seeping through the cracks in the walls. He looked at the wolf, and the wolf's yellow eyes opened, fully aware, watching him without fear, without threat. Just watching, as if the animal was finally seeing him for the first time. Sam held the gaze. Neither of them moved. The wolf did not snarl. Days blurred into a rhythm Sam could measure only by the wolf's progress. He woke before sunrise, crept to the creek to fill a plastic bottle with water, and checked the wound. The swelling went down slowly. The staples held. Prince began to eat again, small pieces of dried meat that Sam bought with the last of his stolen money. By the fourth morning, the wolf could stand without collapsing. The shed had become a world. Sam knew every creak of its walls, every gap in the roof where the rain dripped through. He talked to Prince in a low voice, telling him about the weather, about the dump, about nothing at all. The wolf listened with his ears tilted forward, his yellow eyes following Sam's every move. There was no fear between them now, only a quiet, steady watchfulness. But food was running out. The $60 were gone, spent on bandages, antiseptic, and a jar of peanut butter from the gas station. Sam had eaten the last of the peanut butter 2 days ago. His stomach growled constantly. He needed real food, and that meant stealing again. He crossed the field behind the dump at dusk and found a chicken coop behind a farmhouse. The smell of feathers and droppings filled the air. Sam crept forward, heart pounding. He reached into a nesting box and grabbed 3 warm eggs. A dog barked somewhere inside the house. Sam bolted, the eggs clutched against his chest. He didn't stop until he was back in the woods, panting and laughing with a strange, desperate relief. That night, he cracked the eggs into a dented pot and mixed them with water. He fed half to Prince and ate the rest raw, standing by the shed door. His reflection in a piece of broken mirror showed him a face he barely recognized. The boy who had left home was gone. This one was thinner, harder, with dark circles under his eyes and a stillness in his hands that hadn't been there before. He realized he hadn't spoken a full sentence to another human being in 4 days. The thought scared him. He was learning to read a wolf better than he could read people. He understood the way Prince lowered his head when he was tired, the way his ears twitched at the sound of a distant engine. But people, they were becoming a foreign country. "I got into a fight at school," Sam said one evening, sitting with his back against the wall. Prince lay with his head on his paws, listening. There was this kid, Marcus. He was filming a guy in the bathroom. The guy was crying, pants around his ankles. Marcus was laughing. So I hit him. I hit him hard. He paused, rubbing a scab on his knuckle. The school said I was the violent one. They didn't care why I did it. They just looked at my file and saw what they wanted to see. He looked at Prince. Neither of us gets a fair trial, huh? The wolf blinked slowly. Sam reached out and scratched behind his ear. The fur was rough but warm. The wolf let out a low rumbling sound that wasn't quite a growl and wasn't quite a sigh. The next morning, Prince stood on his own and stretched. His claws clicked on the concrete floor. He took a shaky step, then another. Sam watched, holding his breath. The wolf walked to the door and sniffed at the crack, then turned and looked at Sam as if asking permission. Sam smiled. The fear that had lived in his chest since the first night finally loosened its grip. That was the day the drunk man came. Sam heard him before he saw him. Heavy, stumbling footsteps and a voice singing tunelessly about a lost love. The man was heading straight for the shed, probably mistaking it for a place to sleep off his bottle. Sam scrambled to his feet. He had no time to hide. The door creaked open, and the man's silhouette filled the frame. Prince moved faster than Sam had ever seen him move. The wolf placed himself between Sam and the door, legs braced, head low. His lips peeled back over yellow teeth, and a deep growl rolled out of his chest like thunder. Sam's blood turned to ice. He grabbed the wolf by the scruff of the neck and pulled. "No," he hissed. "No." The drunk man blinked, his glassy eyes struggling to focus. He saw the wolf and staggered back, arms flailing. He turned and ran, or tried to, tripping over a rusted wheelbarrow and scrambling away into the dark. The wolf strained against Sam's grip but didn't lunge. Sam held on until the man's footsteps faded. Then he let go and collapsed against the wall, shaking. The wolf turned and nuzzled his face, a cold nose pressing against his cheek. Sam laughed, a broken sound, and wrapped his arms around the animal's neck. Later, when the adrenaline had drained away, Sam pulled out the old burner phone he had been carrying since the first night. He had kept it off to save the battery. He turned it on now. The screen lit up, 12 missed calls from Mom, 1 voicemail. Sam stared at the number, his thumb hovering over the play button. He didn't press it. He couldn't, not yet. Then a news alert popped up at the bottom of the screen. The words were small but clear. Search for missing teen continues. Authorities warn of wolf sighting near town. Sam turned the phone off and shoved it back into his pocket. The shed felt smaller now. The world outside was closing in. The man stepped out of the trees like he had grown there, part of the bark and shadow. Sam's first instinct was to run, to grab Prince and vanish into the undergrowth, but the wolf didn't move. Prince's ears tilted forward and his tail gave a single slow sweep across the dirt. He knew this man. The stranger was old with a gray beard that reached his chest and a faded green jacket patched at the elbows. He carried no rifle, only a dented thermos in one hand and a canvas bag over his shoulder. His eyes moved from Sam to the wolf and back again, and then he nodded, as if he had just confirmed something he already suspected. "You're the kid from the news," he said. His voice was low and rough, softened by years of talking to animals more than people. "Didn't figure you'd be the one keeping him alive." Sam's throat tightened. He stepped in front of Prince without thinking, his hands forming fists. "Who are you?" "Ray. I work with the Wildlife Service, or I used to, before they decided I was too old to be useful." He set the thermos down on a stump and raised both hands, palms out. "I'm not here to take him. I'm here because I've been tracking Prince for 3 years, ever since some farmer shot him the first time. He's not a dangerous animal. He's just hungry." Sam didn't move. The words farmer and shot rattled in his head, but what stuck was the way Ray said Prince's name like a friend talking about another friend. It was the same way Sam said it now. He felt something shift in his chest, a crack in the wall he had built against adults. Ray lowered himself onto a fallen log with a groan. "That wolf was born in these woods. He's never hurt a person, but he's killed livestock. That makes him a problem. If Garrett catches him, or if the Rangers do, they'll put him down. No trial, no second chance." Sam felt heat rise in his face. "So what am I supposed to do? Let him die?" "I didn't say that." Ray unscrewed the thermos and poured something dark and steaming into the cap. He held it out. "Tea. You look like you haven't been warm in a week." Sam hesitated, then took the cap. The liquid was sweet and hot, and it burned his throat in a way that felt almost painful. It was the first real warmth he had felt since he left home. He drank it slowly, each swallow loosening something tight inside him. Ray watched him with patient eyes. "You're hiding from your own pack, kid. Healing him won't fix that." The stranger was old with a gray beard that reached his chest and a faded green jacket patched at the elbows. He carried no rifle, only a dented thermos in one hand and a canvas bag over his shoulder. His eyes moved from Sam to the wolf and back again, and then he nodded, as if he had just confirmed something he already suspected. "You're the kid from the news," he said. His voice was low and rough, softened by years of talking to animals more than people. "Didn't figure you'd be the one keeping him alive." Sam's throat tightened. He stepped in front of Prince without thinking, his hands forming fists. "Who are you?" "Ray. I work with the Wildlife Service, Or I used to, before they decided I was too old to be useful. Sam looked at Prince. The wolf was standing now, weight off the injured leg, watching the conversation as if he understood every word. Sam had dragged him half a mile on the first night. 3 miles would be harder, but the wolf was stronger now, and Sam had no choice. They worked in silence. Ray pulled a folded canvas stretcher from his bag, and together they coaxed Prince onto it. The wolf whimpered once, but stayed still, trusting. Sam tightened the straps with numb fingers, while Ray checked the route on a worn map. A branch snapped in the darkness beyond the shed. Sam's head jerked up. Ray froze, one hand on his bag. Then a red dot danced across Sam's chest, settling over his heart. Garrett's voice came out of the night, low and pleased. Told you I'd find him. Step away from the dog, boy. The red dot did not waver. Sam could feel it like a hot coin pressed against his ribs, even through his jacket. He could see the shape of Garrett now, broad and solid behind the rifle, his face half lit by the moon. The poacher's smile was a pale slash in the dark. I said step away. Garrett took another step forward, the rifle steady in his hands. That pelt's worth more than you are. Don't make me do something you'll regret. Sam didn't move. His heart was slamming against his ribs, but his feet stayed planted. Behind him, he heard Prince shift on the stretcher, a low growl building in the wolf's chest. Ray raised both hands slowly. Garrett, you don't want this, Ray said, his voice calm. You fire that rifle, you'll have a dead kit and a dead wolf, and the Rangers will be here in 10 minutes. Is that what you want? I want what I'm owed, Garrett snarled. That wolf killed 2 of my sheep last winter. I've been hunting him for months. This boy's got no right to interfere. He jabbed the rifle barrel towards Sam. Last warning. Sam's mind raced. He thought about the school hallway, the boy with the phone camera, the moment he had swung his fist. He had acted then without thinking, a burst of rage and instinct. This was different. This was a man with a gun who would kill without hesitation, and the only thing standing between him and the wolf was Sam. He stepped sideways, putting himself directly in front of Prince. You'll have to shoot me first. Garrett laughed, a dry, ugly sound. You think I won't? Then everything happened at once. Garrett lunged forward and grabbed Sam by the collar, yanking him sideways. The rifle barrel swung away for a split second, and in that split second, Prince moved. The wolf came off the stretcher like a bolt of gray lightning, all muscle and teeth. He hit Garrett at chest height, jaws closing around the man's forearm, and drove him backward into the dirt. The rifle went off with a deafening crack, the bullet tearing through the roof of the shed. Sam's ears rang, a high-pitched whine that blotted out everything else. The air stank of cordite and blood. Garrett screamed. The sound was raw and terrified, nothing like the smug voice from moments before. Prince stood over him, teeth sunk deep into his arm, but the wolf was not tearing, not killing. He was holding, waiting. His yellow eyes flicked to Sam. Sam could feel it, the power. He could end this man with a single word. He could let Prince finish what Garrett had started. The savage satisfaction rose in his chest, hot and dark, and for one horrible second he wanted it. He wanted Garrett to pay, to suffer, to feel the same helplessness Sam had felt his whole life. And then the horror crashed over him, cold and sickening. Prince, release. His voice came out strangled but firm. The wolf's ears twitched. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then Prince unclamped his jaws and backed away, blood dripping from his muzzle. He sat down beside Sam and pressed his wet nose against the boy's neck, a low whine humming in his throat. Sam sank to his knees. His whole body was shaking. He pressed his hands over his ears, trying to block out the ringing, the world, the sound of his own thoughts. I almost let him die, he whispered. I wanted him to. Ray was already on the ground, pulling zip ties from his bag and securing Garrett's wrists. The poacher was pale and trembling, but alive. Ray spoke to him in a low, hard voice, promising him a ride straight to the ranger station and a long list of charges. Then he looked at Sam. You did good, kid. Hardest thing in the world is holding back when you've got the upper hand. You proved something tonight. Sam shook his head. I shouldn't have hesitated. I should have stopped him before you did. You're 15 years old and you just stared down a man with a gun, Ray said. Give yourself some credit. Ray hauled Garrett to his feet and shoved him toward the poacher's truck, which was parked 100 yards down the trail. He paused before he climbed into the driver's seat. Take Prince to the hut. You know the way now. Follow the creek north until you hit the old stone marker, then turn east. The hut's got supplies. I'll come find you when this is settled. Sam swallowed. You're leaving me. You don't need me, Ray said. You need to finish what you started. Prove you can. He tossed Sam a small flashlight and a folded map. Go, before the sun comes up. The truck's engine growled to life, and the taillights disappeared into the trees. Sam stood alone in the clearing, the wolf pressed against his leg, the night pressing in around them. As they turned toward the creek, Garrett's voice cut through the dark, raw with hatred. You're no different from that beast. They'll never take you back. Sam did not turn around. He put one hand on Prince's head and kept walking, the words trailing him like smoke. The trail narrowed, and the forest swallowed them whole. The trapper's hut was smaller than the shed, but it had a real door and a stove that still worked. Sam found a stack of dry wood under a tarp and got a fire going within the first hour. Prince lay on a pile of old blankets in the corner, licking his leg where the staples had been. The wound had closed into a pink hairless scar. He was healing. He was almost whole. Sam knew what that meant. Every day the wolf grew stronger. The day they would have to part came closer. He tried not to think about it. Instead, he filled his hours with small tasks. He swept the floor. He melted snow for water. He checked the map Ray had given him, tracing the blue line of the creek with a dirty finger. On the third morning, he decided it was time. Prince needed to remember how to be wild. The wolf had grown lazy with the easy food Sam brought him, the dried meat and stolen eggs. If he went back into the woods like this, he would starve or wander into someone's barn and get shot. Sam had to teach him again. They started with short trips into the forest. Sam walked ahead and Prince followed, his nose working the ground. The wolf's limp was almost gone. He moved through the underbrush like a ghost, his gray coat blending into the shadows. Sam watched him stop at a fallen log, sniff the air, and turn his ears toward a distant sound. The hunting instinct was still there, buried under weeks of sickness and safety. It just needed to come out. But they weren't the only ones in the woods. A police helicopter flew low over the treetops one afternoon, its rotors thumping like a giant heart. Sam pressed himself against a tree trunk and pulled Prince close, one hand over the wolf's muzzle. The beam of a searchlight swept across the forest floor, white and blinding. Sam's face was on a poster now. He had seen it at a trailhead while scavenging for cans, his school photo, the word missing in bold letters above it. His mother was looking for him. The whole town was looking for him. The helicopter circled twice and moved on. Sam let out his breath and slumped against the tree. Prince licked his hand, a rough, warm tongue over his knuckles. The wolf didn't understand why they were hiding, only that Sam was afraid. That night, Sam sat on a flat rock at the edge of a clearing. The moon was full, so bright it painted everything in blue and silver. The snow had melted in patches, and the first hints of green were pushing through the dead leaves. Spring was coming. Prince sat beside him, his shoulder pressed against Sam's thigh. The wolf's eyes were fixed on the moon. Sam pulled the old leather collar from his pocket. He had kept it since the first night, the name Prince scratched into the brass tag. It was worn and cracked, too tight for the wolf's neck now. He didn't need it anymore, but Sam wasn't ready to let go completely. He took out his pocket knife and cut a small strip of leather from the collar. He worked slowly, shaping it into a rough circle, then poked a hole through the top. A token, something to remember by. He tied the leather token to his wrist with a piece of string. I'll remember, he said aloud. His voice sounded strange in the open air, unused for so long. He thought about his mother. He thought about the 12 missed calls and the voicemail he still hadn't listened to. He pulled out the burner phone and turned it on. The battery was low, a thin red line on the screen. He opened the voice recorder and pressed the button. "Mom," he said. His voice cracked on the word. He paused, breathing. "I'm not lost. I'm just not done yet. I'm sorry. I'll come home soon." He stopped the recording and saved it. He didn't send it, not yet, but saying the words out loud loosened something in his chest, a knot that had been there since he walked out the back door. Beside him, Prince lifted his head and howled. The sound rose up from his chest, low and rolling, and spread across the clearing like fog. It was not a cry of pain. It was a call, a statement. "I am here." Sam listened until the last echo faded. Then he stood up and walked back to the hut, the wolf at his side, the leather token tapping against his wrist. The next morning, Prince made his first kill. A rabbit, flushed from a bush, too slow to escape. The wolf caught it in 2 bounds and snapped its neck with a single clean bite. He stood over the body, blood on his muzzle, and looked at Sam. There was no apology in his eyes, only a quiet natural pride. Sam watched, and he felt 2 things at once: pride because he had helped this animal survive, and grief because the wildness was back and it would not share a hut with him much longer. Prince ate his kill. Then he walked to the edge of the clearing and stopped. He looked back at Sam, yellow eyes catching the light. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then the wolf turned and trotted into the trees, his gray body dissolving into the shadows. Sam stood alone. The silence roared in his ears. He did not call Prince back. He knew this was the right thing, the only honest thing. The wolf was free. The tether between them, invisible but strong, had finally dissolved. He turned south toward the town lights. The walk back would take hours, but his feet felt steady. In his pocket, the burner phone vibrated. A text from Ray. "Garrett in custody. If you come in, I'll stand with you." Sam read the message twice. Then he started walking. The police station was a squat brick building on Main Street, the kind of place Sam had walked past 100 times without ever really seeing it. Now it loomed in the gray morning light like a wall he had to climb. Ray was waiting for him on the front steps, hands in his pockets, his old green jacket buttoned against the cold. "You look terrible," Ray said. "Thanks," Sam said. Ray smiled, a small tired smile, and put a hand on Sam's shoulder. "Ready." Sam wasn't ready. His stomach was a knot, and his hands were shaking again, but he nodded and they walked inside together. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, harsh and white. The air smelled of coffee and floor cleaner. An officer at the front desk looked up, saw Sam, and reached for the phone. Within minutes, the station was full of voices and footsteps. Sam sat on a hard plastic chair with Ray beside him, staring at the floor, trying to remember how to breathe. His mother arrived less than 20 minutes later. Sam heard her before he saw her, the quick, sharp sound of her shoes on the linoleum. She burst through the door and stopped dead when she saw him. Her face was a mess of tears and anger and something else, something that looked a lot like relief. For a long moment, she just stood there, her mouth opening and closing with words that wouldn't come. Then she crossed the room and pulled him into a hug so tight it hurt. "Don't you ever do that again," she said, her voice muffled against his hair. "Don't you ever." Sam held on. Her coat smelled of lavender detergent, the same scent that had filled the laundry room on Sunday afternoons his whole life. He breathed it and felt his chest crack open. "I'm sorry," he said. "Mom, I'm sorry." The officer in charge, a sergeant with a tired face and a coffee stain on his tie, led them into a small room. He had questions. Lots of them. Where had Sam been? Why did he run? Did he know anything about the break-in at the vet clinic? Sam answered every question, his voice quiet but steady. He didn't lie. He told them about the dump, about Prince, about the medicine. When he finished, the sergeant leaned back in his chair and rubbed his forehead. "Technically, we've got a theft charge here," the sergeant said. "Breaking and entering, stealing prescription drugs. That's serious." Sam felt his old rage flicker. He was the boy who had been unfairly expelled. He was the boy who had saved a wolf, and now he was being called a thief by a man who hadn't listened. He opened his mouth to argue, but Ray put a hand on his arm. "Wait," Ray said quietly. The door opened, and Dr. Hathaway walked in. Sam recognized her immediately. She was the vet from the clinic, a tall woman with gray-streaked hair and kind, sharp eyes. She had been the one who put down his old dog 3 years ago, her voice gentle, her hands careful. Sam's stomach dropped. She was the person he had stolen from. Dr. Hathaway looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned to the sergeant. "I'm not pressing charges." The sergeant blinked. "You're sure?" "I saw the staples he used. The wound he closed, that wasn't vandalism. That was practice." She looked at Sam again. "Some people mend bones. You mend trust. I could use that kind of energy at the clinic. If you're willing to do community service hours, I'll take them." Sam stared at her. The offer was so unexpected, so much bigger than forgiveness, that he couldn't find words. He nodded, a quick jerky motion. "Okay, yeah, thank you." The rest of the day was paperwork and phone calls and a long, quiet drive home in his mother's car. She didn't yell. She just kept glancing at him like he might vanish if she looked away too long. Sam leaned his head against the cold window and watched the streets roll past. Everything looked smaller now, tamer. The wild world he had lived in for 2 weeks felt like a dream. That night, Sam couldn't sleep. His bed was too soft, his room too warm. He climbed out the window onto the roof, the way he used to do when he was a kid. The shingles were cold under him, and the sky was clear. The stars looked the same as they had from the shed, from the clearing, from the hut. He sat there for a long time, listening to the silence. Then it came. A howl, high and long, drifting down from the northern hills. It rolled across the town like a memory, like a question. Sam held his breath. A second howl answered, then a third, higher and younger. A pack, not a cage. Sam smiled, the leather token pressed against his wrist, small and warm. He touched it with his thumb once and climbed back inside. Time to build something. The school looked exactly the same. Same gray brick, same cracked pavement, same faded sign above the entrance that read Northwood Secondary in peeling gold letters. Sam had walked through those doors 1,000 times, but today his feet felt like they were made of stone. His mother walked beside him, her hand resting on his shoulder. Ray was there too, wearing a clean shirt that still smelled faintly of wood smoke. The hearing was in the conference room on the second floor. A long table stood in the center, surrounded by plastic chairs that squeaked when you moved. The school board members sat on one side, 5 of them, with papers and coffee cups arranged in front of them. Sam recognized the principal, a thin man with glasses who never smiled, and Mrs. Keller, the guidance counselor who had called him violent by nature in front of his mother. She sat at the end of the table, her lips pressed into a thin line. On the other side sat Marcus and his parents. Marcus had a fading bruise on his cheekbone where Sam's fist had landed. He didn't look angry. He looked nervous, his eyes darting towards Sam and then away. His mother sat stiff-backed, her handbag clutched on her lap like a shield. His father stared at Sam with open dislike. Sam took his seat. The radiator against the wall ticked and hissed, pumping too much heat into the room. The air was thick with it. A bead of sweat rolled down his back. He pressed his palms flat against his thighs to stop his hands from shaking, the same gesture he had used 12 times to calm Prince when the wolf was frightened. It worked a little. The principal cleared his throat and began. The hearing was called to review the expulsion. He summarized the incident, a fight in the hallway, a punch thrown, Marcus injured. The school's position was clear. Sam had a history of anger issues, and this was the culmination. Sam listened, but his eyes drifted to the window. Outside, the playing field stretched green and empty. A single crow hopped across the grass, pecking at something invisible. Sam thought about the dump, the cold concrete floor, the way Prince's yellow eyes had watched him without judgment. The wolf had never read his file. The wolf had seen only his actions. Mrs. Keller spoke next. Her voice was calm and professional, the way it always was. She talked about patterns of behavior, about a lack of respect for authority, about a boy who had been given chances and had thrown them away. Sam felt the old anger rise, hot and sharp. He wanted to interrupt. He wanted to tell her that she had never listened, that she had already decided who he was before he ever opened his mouth. But he didn't, he breathed. He pressed his palms harder against his legs. Ray had told him that morning the truth doesn't shout, it just stands there. So Sam stood there silently. Then it was his turn. He stood up, his chair squeaking on the linoleum. He pulled the phone from his pocket, the burner phone he had carried through the dump and the shed and the hut. The video was on it, sent to him by the bullied kid 2 days ago. The kid whose name was Alex, who had finally found the courage to speak. Sam played the video. The screen showed the school bathroom, wobbling and grainy. Alex was backed against the stall, his pants around his ankles, his face streaked with tears. Marcus's voice came out of the speaker, laughing, taunting. Cry harder. Maybe someone will come save you. The camera shook with the laughter of the person holding it. Marcus. The room went silent. The radiator ticked. Somewhere, a fountain pen scratched against a notepad and then stopped. Marcus's mother let out a small sound, a sharp intake of breath. His father's face turned red and then pale. Marcus stared at the table. Sam stopped the video. His hand was steady now. I hit him, he said. I shouldn't have. There was probably a better way, but I couldn't just stand there and watch. And nobody else was doing anything. He looked at Mrs. Keller. You called me violent. Maybe I was for 2 seconds, but Marcus filmed a kid on the toilet for 2 minutes and laughed. Which one is worse? He turned back to the board. I'm not asking you to like me. I just need the truth. The principal removed his glasses and polished them with a cloth, his thin face unreadable. Then he nodded slowly. Given the new evidence, the board will reconsider the expulsion. It took another hour of discussion, but the result was clear. The expulsion was overturned. In its place, the board ordered restorative justice mediation between Sam and Marcus and a written apology from the school for not investigating the incident properly. Sam would be allowed to return to classes the following week. Before he left, Sam pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. He had written it the night before, sitting on the roof under the stars. He read it aloud, his voice quiet but clear. Running away taught me that I don't want to be someone who runs. I want to finish what I start. Thank you for giving me that chance. As he walked out of the room, the principal stopped him with a hand on his arm. We have a new wildlife elective starting next term. Field trips, tracking, conservation work. I think your enthusiasm could use a formal channel. Interested. Sam blinked. I might be. The principal almost smiled. Good. Think about it. Sam walked out into the hallway where his mother was waiting. She put her arm around him, and for the first time in weeks, the weight on his chest felt a little lighter. 3 months passed. The town thawed into spring, then warmed into early summer. Sam finished the school year with grades that surprised even him. He spent his afternoons at the vet clinic, cleaning cages, restocking supplies, and learning how to hold a trembling dog while Dr. Hathaway trimmed its nails. The animals trusted him. He had learned that from Prince. His mother smiled more now, though she still checked his room every night before bed. The missing posters came down from the store windows. The story of the wolf faded into local legend, the kind of thing people talked about at the diner but didn't quite believe. Sam didn't talk about it. He just carried the leather token on his wrist and knew his own truth. On the first free Saturday of summer, Sam borrowed his mother's old hiking boots and took the bus to the edge of town. He walked the same road he had walked the night he ran away, past the ring road, past the dump, into the woods where the air smelled of wet earth and new fern. The stream was swollen with snowmelt, rushing louder than he remembered. Distant crows called from the treetops, and the forest held its breath. The trapper's hut was still there. The door hung open, and the roof sagged a little more than before, but the stove was untouched, and the pile of blankets had been scattered by mice. Sam stood in the doorway and let the memories wash over him. Prince lying on the floor, the fire crackling, the sound of the helicopter overhead. It felt like another lifetime. Outside, he found what he was looking for, a track in the mud by the stream. Wolf. The print was fresh, the edges sharp, pressed deep into the soft ground. Sam's heart beat faster. He knelt and touched the edge of the track with his finger. Not a dog, too wide, too straight. Prince had been here. He could follow the trail. It led north into the deeper forest. He could walk for hours, maybe days, and find the wolf again. He wanted to. The longing was so sharp it felt like hunger. But he didn't move. He knelt there in the mud, his hand hovering over the track, and he thought about what Ray had said the first day they met. Owning a wild thing means nothing. Love means letting the tracks lead away from you. The wolf's life was not a human story. It didn't end with a reunion. It didn't end at all. It just kept going, wild and free, and Sam had been part of it for a little while. That was enough. He untied the leather token from his wrist. The strip of collar was soft now, worn smooth by 3 months of never taking it off. He held it in his palm for a moment, feeling its weight. Then he walked to the hut and hung it on a nail by the door. Wolf ticket used to mean you're out of the pack, he murmured. Maybe it means you choose your own pack. He turned and started down the trail without looking back. The forest was quiet around him, the only sound the crunch of his boots on the path. A crow called again, and another answered. The stream rushed on. At the edge of the trees, where the dirt trail met the asphalt road, a shadow moved. Sam stopped, his breath caught in his throat. A gray wolf stood at the tree line, larger than before, its coat thick and silver in the afternoon light. Behind it, 2 smaller shapes moved through the ferns. Yearlings, their legs still long and clumsy, their ears too big for their heads. Prince. The wolf did not approach. He stood perfectly still, his yellow eyes meeting Sam's across the distance. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. No fear, no claim, no goodbye, just recognition. Then Prince's tail gave a single slow wag. Once, twice. He turned, and the yearlings followed, slipping into the shadows. They were gone as quickly as they had appeared, swallowed by the forest. Sam let out a breath he didn't know he had been holding. He put his hands in his pockets and walked onto the asphalt. The sun was low now, painting the town in gold. The streetlights flickered on as he reached the first houses. Children were playing in a front yard, their laughter high and bright. Somewhere a dog barked. Sam walked down his street, past the neighbors' cars, past the mailbox his mother had knocked over last winter. He stopped at its front door and looked up at the roof where he used to sit and stare at the stars. Then he smiled, a small private smile meant for nobody but himself. Okay, he said under his breath, time to build something.